Gran Touring Motorsport started as a social group of car enthusiasts, but we've expanded into all sorts of motorsports disciplines, and we want to share our stories with you. Years of racing, wrenching, and motorsports experience brings together a top-notch collection of knowledge and information through our podcast, Break Fix.
Yeah! Hey everybody, I'm Steve.
And I'm Izzy.
And we're with Everything I Learned from Movies. And tonight...
Tonight.
We're talking car movies with Break Fix.
Woo!
That's right. Tonight, in one of the ultimate no prep showdowns of the year, we attempt to pit original versus remake in a best of car adjacent movies drag race.
That's right. And the movie buffs, Steve and Izzy from Everything I Learned from Movies, are joining us tonight on this Car Nerds versus Movie Buffs Break Fix crossover episode. So why don't we get this drag race started?
Wait, we're not racing for pinks, are we?
I'm not sure. That's up to them.
Look, I got a lot to put on the line here. I drive a 96 Honda Accord, and
I'm sorry. I'm very sorry for you.
I got some Hot Wheels.
I just found my Micro Machines.
Yeah, there we go.
I can talk almost as fast as the Micro Machines guy. I'm getting close these days. You know, it's the Red Bull that really does it.
Sometimes you can talk really, really fast, especially if you've had a couple of good drinks. But yeah.
So let's set the stage a little bit. Let's set the rules. Just like our What Should I Buy episodes, I think this one deserves a little bit of context for our listeners. Just like in the car world, the movie world is often debated, new versus old. Is Star Wars Episode 1 just as good as A New Hope, or, vice versa? The answer is, yeah, maybe. But in some cases, absolutely not. The rule of sequels comes into play. The Joel Schumacher versions of Batman were terrible, and we all know that the Tim Burton ones are fantastic. I'm just going to leave it at that. That being said, cars are also remade over and over again in their original image, and sometimes morphed into something completely reimagined, but they're always sequels. So are they better? And so let's try to answer those questions about car related movies and whether they are better. And let's talk about the cars that are featured in those films. Steve and Izzy, why don't you kick us off? What do you want to talk about first?
Look, if you guys are going to sit around here and justify the Bronco 2, I'm out.
No, but I want to correct Eric on something. These aren't sequels to the original movies. These are remakes.
This is like a new Thunderbird.
I mean, yeah. Well, we'll talk about it. You guys heard our Gone in 60 Seconds episodes, kind of how we were introduced.
Absolutely.
Let's start with the old versus new for Gone in 60 Seconds.
Absolutely. And we too did a movie mix bag episode where we talked about the original Gone in 60 Seconds. And that movie
trash.
It's tragic. It really is. I mean, it's akin to the Red
Holy
Death,
crap.
right? The DMV safety videos they used to show you in like the 80s and stuff. Like, this might happen to you if you don't wear your seatbelt.
That movie is if GTM members had an unlimited budget and said, hey, let's make a movie.
And by unlimited, you mean 20 grand.
And a six-pack.
And about 15 Mustangs.
Oh, yeah, true. But it was back in the 70s, so you could get them for like $2,000.
That's true. And legend has it, according to our researcher, right? We always have to fact check some of the stuff we do. There was only one Mustang used in that movie. It's the same pile of crap through that entire 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Even Dukes of Hazzard had a couple spares.
They had like 79 Chargers they used over the course of that show.
Yeah.
And there's another one to talk about remakes and sequels there too. The Dukes of Hazzard. Jessica Simpson.
Hutch,
God. Oh, that was terrible.
But Snoop Dogg was Huggy Bear.
When Starsky met Hutch.
So let's reference, for those that don't know, the 1970s classic Gone in 60 Seconds. H.B. Halecki used a 74 Mustang, which actually wasn't a Mach 1, but he modified to look like one, which was the hot ticket upgrade package for the Mustang at that time. And he did all his own stunts, much like Jackie Chan, Jason Statham, and Tom Cruise. But it didn't turn out so well for Eleanor at the end of the movie, as you guys, kind of walked that through for the audience. And most people can't stand to make it through that film. But when Gone in 60 Seconds with Nicolas Cage came out, I think they just turned the whole thing on its nose. 67 GT500 Mustang, where'd that come from? I mean, Eleanor, the original one, wasn't one of those. Does that make it better? Does it make it worse? I don't know if the acting was any better in the second movie. What about you?
Whoa. Academy Award winner Nicolas Cage as Memphis Reigns.
We
Yeah,
almost named our cats after that character.
Instead, we named them Cameron and Poe. You know?
But did Nicolas Cage come into himself yet at that point compared to
this
other
was
movies?
after The Rock and Con Air and Face Off and Leaving Las Vegas, which you won an Academy Award for.
Yeah,
And this was before, the
divorces.
downturn. Yeah.
The divorces and the
This was his
T-Rex calls.
heyday.
Yeah, this is peak Nicolas Cage action star. Are you kidding me?
This is like the end of the peak. This is like national treasure Nicolas Cage.
This is how he earned all his money to buy all those castles and shit.
Yeah,
I mean,
like
T-Rex
T-Rex skulls and,
Yeah.
and various wives from other nations and
And I
he
hear the
needs a-
Ferrari in National Treasure was his too, so a little bit of millionaire trivia there.
Yeah.
Before the bill collectors took it.
and the
It was.
and the pyramid that he purchased for the sequel that didn't get made.
Oh yeah, National Treasure 3, St. Louis Cathedral #1. Check it out.
You know, I would have watched that movie because I was a big fan of the first two. So hey, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Right, everybody.
I'd still watch it.
I should probably let the listeners at home know that Nicolas Cage is probably the patron saint of our podcast. We have interviewed his brother, a bunch of his directors, his stand-in. So we're coming for you, Nick.
We're kind of circling around. And
stand-in.
eventually, he'll get wind. I think.
What exactly are you circling though? That's what I want to know.
We're circling
drain.
Nicolas Cage.
I'm sorry. We are orbiting Nicolas Cage, and eventually,
Yeah.
we're gonna crash through that atmosphere, and boom.
Since you're a satellite or moon around Nicolas Cage, is there a name for this?
Steve, what is the name of our podcast?
Everything I learned from movies on all the major podcatchers, and follow us at EILF Movies on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Brilliant. So
Also, Steve's nickname is Shitplugger Steve because he will plug our shit anywhere.
That's right.
nice.
Oh, and then I mentioned Patreon because it's just $2 a month anyway.
But I have to say, Nicolas Cage is so desperate right now. I'm surprised that he hasn't actually called you guys to come on your show.
Look.
Oh,
He's
no.
far too busy to be talking to us.
No.
But
Here's the thing: everybody thinks he's desperate.
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage is really at a really interesting point in his career because he's free to do all these little movies. He's doing so many characters right now. You don't
Free
have
to
like
do,
the
has
movie.
to do.
Oh no, he's going through and like choosing wildly different characters and putting a Nick Cage spin on them. Like if you keep watching these, he's doing some really, really interesting stuff.
And by the way, guys, think of it this way. If he were to do, National Treasure 3 and get $20 million, how much of that does he actually get? How
5.
many, compared to his ex-wives and managers?
Oh, well,
and
yeah.
blah, blah, blah.
It's like trickle down Reaganomics
Yeah,
at that
so
point.
if
You
he's
know?
like just getting enough to get by, the tax man or whatever is like, well, we can't have this guy living out of a shoebox,
He's like the Hollywood version of Michael Strahan. He had to keep playing in the NFL to appease his ex-wives.
Yeah.
Or he just goes wherever Wesley Snipes went after Demolition Man. And then it'll be okay in 20 years. It'll be fine.
2 steps ahead of the tax man.
Exactly. But yeah, he's able to express himself in different ways, do all these odd things that he wouldn't be able to do if he was, I don't know, playing Nick Fury or something in the Avengers movies or something like
Yeah,
that.
he gets to do a lot of different characters. I'm gonna point to Willy's Wonder World.
Willie's
Yes.
Wonderland.
Willy's Wonderland. That's
Yeah,
it.
or-
That-
yeah, was it Wally's? I don't know.
That movie is amazing, and he doesn't say a word.
I think where he's peaked though now for me is that the history of curse words or whatever he did on
That
Netflix.
was good stuff.
That was
Yeah.
fantastic. Some best
I'd say
comedy
the
ever.
first 2 or 3 episodes were fantastic, and then it kind of went on.
Yeah, and that was not Nick Cage's fault. That was the writer's fault.
Yeah.
You could tell where they lost steam and were just having fun.
The whole premise of that show was around fuck, and then they didn't know what to do after that.
100%.
Wait, is dick a bad word?
We're
So
going to
go-
talk about heck.
Yeah.
So going back to this drag race between the original
Oh,
Gone in
yeah,
60
yeah.
Seconds, trying to
Wait, is that what we're doing here?
Memphis
Rain.
Going
So-
back to the drag race, I love RuPaul. What?
Yes. But the reason I say, is the new one better than the old one? And
Yes.
is the acting any better in the new one than the old one?
Yes.
Well, I'll put it this way. The old one didn't have much in the way of dialogue. And in those old 70s movies, that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you've ever watched the movie Le Mans by Steve McQueen, there's about 3 minutes of acting and talking in a 3-hour movie, and it's glorious. And more of those old films should be that way. However, when you get to the new Gone in 60 Seconds, there's just some really just I want to say cringy stuff with Giovanni Ribisi and what's her face?
Angelina
Yes,
Jolie.
yes,
Sway or whatever her name is.
But what gets me is Nick Cage basically acting much like a young William Shatner. Like every time I watch that movie, I'm like, there's a car in a sea container. Oh, let's get it. And you're just like, come on, man. What is this?
He's playing the straight man, the deep one.
Yep.
He's lived too much life already.
Yeah, they all can't be, Delroy Lindo and Robert Duvall and Chi McBride.
Both movies, though, are very much of their time.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I know
100%.
you guys are
Absolutely.
like looking at Gone in 60 Seconds as like a new movie, but that movie's like 25 years old now.
Yeah, it's 2000, I think, when it came
There
out.
are people
yeah.
listening to this podcast that were born after that movie came out.
Did you see the road sign on the way into the podcast that says Boomtown, exit now? Yeah, welcome to Boomerville. You're here.
Boomtown.
That's all right. I'm pretty sure we're geriatric millennials at this point.
I thought we were elder millennials.
Oh, Lord. Xenials. I would say if we're going to put some numbers on this, I'd say off the line, big old burnout. Both of them hit you in the face right away. I mean, big clouds of smoke from both movies that get your attention. I think in the 8th Mile, they're pretty much tied in terms of satisfaction and entertainment. But when it comes down to what did you get out of the movie at the end, my vote is the new one wins, and so does the new Eleanor. And for one big reason, nobody has a picture of a 74 Mach 1 Mustang on their bedroom wall. I think everybody of our generation probably and still has a picture of the GT500 Eleanor in their garage or in their wall or somewhere in their house.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Oh, yeah.
Would you guys agree? I think the new one definitely wins over the old one.
Yes.
Yeah, it's got like the jokes. Like it's very 90s, but it's a fun 90s.
Yeah, it has like a hackers element to it with cars.
Exactly.
Sure does.
Exactly.
I was a certain age when it came out. I'm 100% in.
It still holds up now, though.
I will agree. I mean, both have their place in cinematic history. I mean, the original Gone in 60 Seconds, for everything that went into that movie, the mass amounts of illegal things they did in that movie. When you really dive into that film, it's a big wow factor. And we do cover it on that other episode. So, I'm not going to belabor that point. So I think both of them have their place in history, much like an old Mustang drag racing against a new one, right? It's cool to see them side by side. But I think we got to move on to another film that's just as awkward.
But before we move on, so if we're keeping score, the new movie is up by 1, and the old movies are down to 0 still, right?
Yes.
Just make sure we keep track of that.
And now we'll continue. So Vanishing Point.
Vanishing Point.
Yeah, the original Vanishing Point with the 70 Challenger and the naked girl riding a motorcycle.
Oh,
and
yeah.
all that
That's
shit.
pretty hard to beat.
That
I'm not
movie
gonna lie.
is amazing. I wanted to be Kowalski, and I was born 20 years too late for that.
Your dad was Kowalski.
Oh yeah, my
though.
dad was probably Kowalski at one point.
Steve's dad was a canine cop.
Yeah.
He had the aviators and the mustache. So picture that movie, but with a dog in the seat, and that was Steve's dad.
So I agree with you. And it's another one of those 70s films where the amount of dialogue is next to zero. I mean, how many times does Barry Newman actually talk in that movie, if at all? Right?
Yeah, the talking versus nudity in that movie. It's like, they're both about 5 minutes, and the rest is just,
And that motorcycle scene can be deleted and it doesn't take away from the film. But
of course not.
But it does add having it in.
But it adds
True,
very
but-
much value.
But you know what does really bring it home for me though is like I can't remember the name of the guy who was in the radio booth and was kind of egging him on and giving him all the pointers.
Yeah.
Immediately my mind goes to Pootie Tang, right? It's
Yeah.
Well,
I fucking love that movie.
Chapatow.
Samuel Kitty on the Runican. What a cow.
But in the other corner, in lane number 2, is an actual remake of the 70s Vanishing Point with Viggo Mortensen and Jason Priestley.
I haven't seen this one. I can't seem to really find it anywhere streaming, but found out about this like a year or two ago, and I was like, holy shit, Viggo did this? I gotta
I
see
didn't
it.
realize you hadn't seen that.
I think this is like that Sinbad Kazam movie. It's like it doesn't exist, but everybody thinks it exists and they've seen it.
We all saw that movie. It's legit.
Yes, we did. It's a conspiracy.
So I happened to see this movie, and I think I have a copy somewhere. I got to go dig it up. And I will say, when the cars pull up to the Christmas tree, it's the same car. It's not Chrysler used this as an excuse to debut the new Challenger because it was too early for that, right? The new Challenger didn't come out to the 2000s. So here we are in 1997, and yet another 71 Challenger RT in white, same thing. It's the same story. It's a literal remake. It's not even a sequel. It's not even reimagined. There's more dialogue. Viggo Mortensen plays a role. I'm going to just put it that way.
Yeah.
But Jason Priestley plays Kowalski in the movie. And if you've seen the original movie, it ends pretty much the same way. Nothing really earth-shattering there. It was just like, hey, did you guys hear about this film that we did in the 70s? Oh, no? Well, here, check this one out.
Well, okay, so it sounds like the original's going to take this one far off in a way like the other one blows a tire or something off the line. What about 2006's or 6 or 8, I forget, Death Proof, where we get the 70 Challenger driven by like Zoe Bell and Sidney Poitier and all that. The lady Sidney Poitier. I don't know.
So if we're gonna do it as a drag race, and we got Kowalski in lane number 1, Jason Priestley's out. He just got thrashed.
Yeah,
This next Challenger pulls up in lane number 2. I think it's another thrashing by the original Challenger from Vanishing Point with Kowalski behind the wheel because of the originality of that film, because of its epicness. I mean, it's got a cult following. Anything else we bring to the line with the Challenger outside of maybe Fast and the Furious 6 or 7 or 12 or 14, however many gear shifts they use in a quarter mile is the only thing that might stand up to it. But I think Kowalski wins every time.
Yeah.
So going back to Death Proof real quick, because one, Eric, I think you're wrong. So is this the Quentin Tarantino double feature, Death Proof?
Yeah, from the Grindhouse double feature.
Yeah. Okay. So that one wins for sure because of the story and everything. And I think that movie's awesome. Honestly, this is an unpopular opinion. I did not like the original Vanishing Point. I was bored to tears. I fell asleep like 2 or 3 times.
So I'm not gonna lie, I am sort of with you. Entertainment value wise, it's not the highest, but I respect it the way that I respect like Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
It's not what I refer to as like it's
I
not
think-
what I refer to as like a popcorn movie. It's like, yeah, put it on, I'm gonna watch it, I'm gonna consume it, I'm gonna enjoy it. But I so appreciate what it did for car movies and the industry and everything. And yeah, the second one is sort of like the remake of Psycho. Did we need it? Is it a bad version? No, but did we need it at all? Viggo only plays 2 characters. He plays Stoic, and he plays a wooden board that everybody else acts around. And he kind of went wooden board in this one.
I swear I saw a wooden board with the same name at IKEA once.
Right?
Well, I have to say, we have to timestamp this episode because this is the first time in human history where Vanishing Point has been compared to Citizen Kane.
Right?
That's true. That is a first.
Yeah, it's like, it's like, yeah, I respect Easy Rider, but Torque or Biker Boys is so much better because it took it that next level.
Biker Boys.
It's the new kids and you know it.
That's right.
Death Proof wins this race and it's not even in it.
I think it's a bracket race and they all come in at the same time because that's the way it works.
These 2 Honda Civics are running and then the Death Proof Charger comes barreling past them on the highway and laughs as it drives by.
All right, I'll give you that. Somebody put a blower on that Challenger and that's why it's winning compared to the other 2 normally aspirated 71 Charger RTs. All right, let's go with that.
With 5 cylinders.
Comes out of nowhere. Plow! Race over.
Next up to the line in the left lane is Mel Gibson, 1979. Ford Falcon XB-GT from Mad Max. And Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron in the 2015 remake of Mad Max.
Fury Road.
My heart. I love all of them so much.
I'm going to make it even closer. Let's go Road Warrior versus Fury Road. Because, okay, the original Mad Max 1979, love the Aussie movies from the 70s. So many great stunts.
Definitely just an Ozploitation movie, 100%.
Yeah, it's fantastic. The story of it's basically Mel Gibson's a cop in, is it post-apocalyptic or just outback Australia where the law really doesn't mean much?
All of the above.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just the outback. That's just how it is even today.
I mean, if you watch Top Gear Australia, it's like an episode of Mad Max.
Yeah, there we go. But then when we get to Road Warrior, then it's like, okay, this movie, this is a world now.
Same
This is-
car though, same car. So
Yeah.
Same
we're
part,
okay.
and same limp. He's got the same limp.
He's doing the
Fury-
stanky leg.
And then Fury Road's just probably the best movie I've seen in 10 years.
Steve,
easily.
who was my favorite character when we came out of watching Fury
Oh,
Road?
the War Rig.
It was the War Rig.
The War Rig,
Yep.
absolutely.
That truck is phenomenal.
The thing that gets me about that though is they would have been the bad guy cars in the original Mad Max trilogy.
Yeah.
We're pulling up to the line with basically an armored truck or a tank against this Ford from Australia. So how do we compare that, right? Because I guess the
Destruction
equivalent.
Derby.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Mad Max Demo Derby.
Remind me, how did the cars end up? Didn't it get destroyed in Fury Road?
The War Rig?
Yeah.
No, the Falcon.
Well, the Falcon survived 2.5 movies, right? Because it was there at the beginning of Thunderdome.
Thunderdome.
And then he abandons it. So I would say longevity-wise, it lasted longer than the war wagons and all that kind of stuff. What happened to those vehicles in Fury Road? I'm trying to
The
remember.
War Rig. Oh, they blow it up.
Oh, no, yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
In the beginning or whatever, the Wild Boys or whatever catch up to him and take him to the prison, or whatever. And I assume they dismantled it or something.
No,
Right?
at the end of the movie, remember they sacrifice it to get away.
Oh shit, that's right. That's the one that blows
Yeah.
up at the end.
Yep.
Yeah, because
okay.
like I legit almost cried.
Yeah, that's right. And that wonderful 3D moment where you got like the steering wheel coming at the screen.
and my husband leaned over and was like, "They always kill your favorite character."
Yeah.
That's awesome. So Brad, let's think about that. Is that a forfeit on the part of the new movie because the vehicle didn't survive?
I guess we're not lumping in all like the trilogy, the Mad Max trilogy, just the first movie, because
Well,
technically
the second movie, The Road Warrior, is the second movie.
Yeah, okay. Because if we're throwing in Thunderdome, then it's like Schrodinger's cat. We don't know if the car survived or not. You have to look at it.
So we bring in the gyro captain.
Yeah, the gyrocopter.
I mean, I think in the race world, the Falcon wins. There's the coolness factor there, the cult classic side of it, from just a car
I'm sorry,
perspective.
The War Rig doesn't have a coolness factor.
No, you know why? Because Eric Bana makes the Falcon super cool when you watch the movie Love the Beast, because he owns one of those XB GTs, and that just brings the wow factor to like 11.
But Charlize Theron actually owns a war rig.
Well, if we're going by coolness, wouldn't the real winner be the guy with the flamethrower guitar and the speakers behind him?
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
The guy
The
wins
giant
for
speaker truck. That guy, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Guitar Gimp wins for coolness. And see, I say that, and you all know exactly who I'm talking about.
Yeah. And then that same character ended up in that Jack Black video game that was all about like death metal, and they had vehicles like that. How do we run this race? Which is better?
Well, I mean, the War Rig gets its Academy Award nomination because she sacrifices herself to save the others. So
That's true.
Best supporting actress.
Supporting actor, yeah. But as movies go, they both again kind of have their place in history in a way, because that whole Mad Max trilogy had been untouched, and then we know that Mel Gibson became persona non grata in Hollywood, like a lot of other people recently, and then they decided to redo it. It was a big wow factor there. So I'm wondering if maybe this is a draw.
We'll say they're in different race classes or something. So yeah.
The win has to go to the original, because people still talk about the original. People don't talk about Fury Road unless you bring up Fury Road.
That's a valid point.
I bring it up every week. No,
I was going to say, somebody doesn't listen to very many movie podcasts. Or somebody definitely didn't go to Comic Cons, in the before full time, because there's tons of Furiosa fan art out there.
Are there a lot of war rig cosplays out there?
Oh, that'd be great.
Oh my
I'd
god,
like to
I would.
see
It's
that.
the new conga line.
I mean, we have Mad Max Furry Roads featuring
Whoa.
Furiosa.
That's a different con.
on our wall. It is Mad Max's cats with the War Rig in the background, and next to that is our artwork Clever Wives, where it's the War Rig and all the wives have been replaced with velociraptors.
So they talk about Fury Road all the time.
Yes.
The rest of the world is like, what?
Yeah, we and the cool cats talk about Fury Road nonstop, but no.
So I'm thinking, I don't know. We gotta figure this out. I'm feeling like 2 points to the vintage lane 1 and maybe 1 point to lane 2 right now. Like the old movies are winning. And we're competitive. We like to keep
Yeah.
score.
Well, if Vanishing Point didn't win, old or new, I mean, that Death Proof won that race. So
That's what I'm
Death Proof wasn't
saying.
even
But
in.
Death Proof is considered new, so we're putting that in lane 2, right? So that's 1 point for new. Since we brought up the majestic Charlize Theron, why don't we just slip right into the DMs of the Italian Job?
Woo! I love these movies.
Yeah, they're both pretty good. Mike O'Kane and Marky Mark.
Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. And I've said it before, and I said it on the episode with Brian. I was like, I have a soft spot for Michael Caine, and it's going to be one of those soul-crushing moments when we get that notice that says, Michael Caine has left us, right? And that, I had that same moment when Robin Williams passed and a couple other people, and I'm just like, oh my God. Yeah, exactly. And you're just like, oh, it's earth-shattering. Any Michael Caine movie for me gets mad props. I'm like, I think he's excellent in everything he's done. I haven't seen a bad movie yet. Even Alfie.
So Jaws
was
of
good.
Revenge is your favorite
Best
Jaws movie?
Jaws
100%. 100%. Anything with Michael Caine, I am on board. So, but the Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch version of the Italian Job with Seth Green,
Edward Norton, Jason Statham, Mos Def.
and whoever that random guy they called Wrench that was supposed to help out Handsome Rob. Like, who was that dude, right? But, I recently rewatched this film, and it's got some definite replay value, right? It's a lot of fun.
That is
But
a super fun one.
It's a lot like Gone in 60 Seconds that way. Like maybe even a little more so, just because it's a little more stylized, I guess. I don't know.
Of its time.
Yeah.
Well, it's a little bit more James Bond. I feel it's got this espionage feel to it versus your classic Michael Caine film where it's like, all right, guys, here's the plot. We're going to go rob a bank. And they rob a bank, and that's the end of the movie. You're like, all right, whatever.
Yeah, it's a lot like Ocean's 11, kind of.
Definitely
Exactly.
Ocean's 11 vibes. Yeah. It's a heist movie.
Yeah.
One's a job movie and one's a heist movie.
That's true. I did like, and I don't know if you guys picked up on this, because again, I recently rewatched this with kind of new eyes, all the little hints and little clues and little throwbacks to the original movie. One of the obvious ones, Charlize comes out in an original Mini, which by the way, was a classic Mini, but a relatively new one if you look at the interior, because they built those alongside of the next generation minis, right up until the early 2000s and whatnot.
Oh, okay.
But there was also some other hints. They talk about, just like we did in the Italian Job, referencing, not even just the beginning of the movie with Donald Sutherland and all that kind of stuff, but even the original movie. But one of them that got me, and you got to pay really close attention. There's a scene where Marky Mark and Seth Green are doing a surveillance, and they're looking across the street from another building into this guy's apartment, and they're watching it, and they're like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. And all this guy does is he's watching TV, and on the screen is Michael Caine, and you have to see it through the blind. So that's one of the other little kind of subtle, nods back to the original movie. Yeah. And I thought it was super cool. So it's full of stuff like that. If you're really kind of nerd out on it, it's a lot of fun.
Nice. Yeah. It's been a while since I've seen the original, but we watched the new one, a month or two ago?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's a lot of fun. I can give it that.
Super fun. And then in Hobbs and Shaw, they have an Italian Job reference when they go into hiding, and Jason Statham has his burner cars, and there's a Mini, and they mention it's for a job, just a little job.
I will say in the original movie, the heist part of it and the whole, the way they orchestrated the traffic lights and all that kind of stuff, that was kind of cool. It was different. It was part of that, just the making of that film. The acting was what it was for the time, and it was good. Sir Michael Caine, right? He always does a great job. And I think there's two big moments in that film. One is the chase scene itself, through the tubes, and they're rocking the car, running through the buildings and all that was super cool. But it wasn't overly exaggerated. Like the cargo payload that they were moving in those old Austin Minis wasn't literally 2,700 pounds like they were trying to do in the new movie. So the realism was a little bit more acceptable, I think, in the old film. For me, it wasn't, you still have to suspend disbelief, but it wasn't over the top exaggerated. The other big moment in that film is actually the end of the movie, where they're celebrating, and then everybody's cheering and whatever, and then they turn the bus sideways, and then they're hanging off the cliff, and they literally leave you in a cliffhanger, and you're like, okay, whatever. But in the second movie, there's just so many things where you're like, really? I know, I've driven those cars, I've instructed in those cars, they can't do that.
Well, but they talk about how they retrofit them.
Yeah. It's
They
like,
do the
the
throwaway
suspension's been uploaded so we can load the 2,700 pounds. And,
Yeah.
they had that little course they've been, practicing their drifting on and all
Yeah,
that stuff.
we upgraded steering and the suspension on these. They're not like
Yeah.
your regular one.
And basically takes it to the realm of, okay, and now they're all Batmobiles or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I like that trope. That's why I like the Fast and Furious movies. You have the one throwaway line, like, don't worry about it, I modified it. And then it's like, yeah, you have a fucking Batmobile now, and
I
I'm in.
modified it. Now I got magnets.
I like that trope in movies, and I love the trope where one character doesn't speak any English and everyone understands him perfectly. Those are two of my favorite tropes in movies.
That was in the Fast and Furious too, right? The two dudes with the trash truck, and I forget which one it is.
Like Leo and Braga or something.
Exactly. Now, I will say this. I have to give mad props to the sound engineers in the new movie. One of my major pet peeves with car films is them basically just regurgitating soundtracks from other cars and they don't mash up. And classically, a lot of TV and film, and I mentioned this on the episode with Brian, they tend to steal the sound of a 911, which is extremely distinct. Flat 6 has a weird sound. The one thing I got to give to this movie is they actually used the sounds of a proper Mini. You hear the supercharger whine. It's a 4-banger. Even the shots from the outside, it's got that raspiness to it. I'm like, cool, they did it right for a change. It's not like a Hemi V8 and we're looking at these little go-karts running around LA. Yeah, terrible. It drives me nuts. Like, so I give mad props, major points to this movie for that.
We live on a mountain road, and if somebody's exhaust or muffler is loose, every car can sound like it's got a V8 in it.
Or a trash truck, one or the other. Now, I am disappointed that they didn't make a sequel to this movie, and I had heard rumor of the title. Do you guys remember what that was?
The French Job.
You'll like
The
it.
blowjob.
Yeah, the Space Job.
The Brazilian Job.
Ooh.
And that's Fast and Furious 5,
Yeah,
where they
Fast
steal the
5.
bank vault.
Yeah, that's just the end of Fast and Furious 5.
Exactly, right? So it all comes full circle. It comes full
Jason
circle.
Statham finally got to go to Brazil.
I'm thinking we got these two minis at the line, revving their motors, all, less than 200 horsepower that they make combined. I think my vote goes to lane number 2 for the new movie because it's much more fun. It has a ton of replay value. You really have to be into old films to really like the original Italian Job and watch a Michael Caine movie on repeat. So I'm thinking my vote goes there. What about you guys?
Oh yeah, I'm for the second one. Again, I love the original one, and I love that all the Easter eggs are in the remake. Like, that makes the remake even better for me. But yeah, the second one's just got the high entertainment value.
And imagine how fast those cars can go once you take all that gold out.
Right?
You can probably drive up the side of a building or something. Like,
They're going to borrow them for the Fast and Furious universe.
yeah, magnets, baby.
Yes.
To use a drag racing term, I think we could give lane number 1, the vintage Mini, 15 in the kick, and that new car is still going to beat him. Either
Well,
way.
he's got a broken axle.
One-wheel drive.
Mm-hmm.
Since we've been talking about both Michael Caine and Jason Statham, there's 2 movies that we're going to kind of unpack here, which are also car-adjacent movies. I think I just want to start with yet another Michael Caine movie. And this one is a little different, but staying with the whole heist idea, gangsters, all that kind of stuff. And that's Get Carter. I think this is a lesser known and underappreciated film. And a lot of people don't realize there's actually a remake of this movie in 2000 with Sly Stallone. So pulling up to the line is both of the Get Carters.
Hey guys, I'm going to be honest. I haven't seen either. I didn't know Get Carter was a remake until like 3 years ago.
Blasphemer.
Is Get Carter it's not like Get Mustang or something? All I knew about Get Carter was there's a Stallone movie about it, and I think he's a gangster or something. I completely lost interest from the trailer. I had no idea it had anything to do with cars.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to nerd out for a moment. Get ready. You guys can come back in 10 minutes, take a pee break, whatever. But The original movie is based on a series of books, which are excellent. And so they made this original film with Michael Caine, and Michael Caine is the good guy gangster, right? His brother is killed. It's tied up into all this kind of stuff, and he wants to exact revenge. So he goes on this, 90-minute tirade of going after people and hunting down who the killer is, and this whole kind of like the prisoner's way. Who is number one and who do you work for? That kind of like just vibrato, right? Like all films of that era, especially European films, it ends tragically. So I don't want to give away the ending. Put it this way. There are some really interesting car chase scenes in that movie. There's with some vintage British cars. You got a Sunbeam Alpine. You've got a Jaguar XJ, and they're chasing around, some stuff in a parking garage. It's kind of cool. And then I will spoil this part. Spoiler alert, that one of the characters, he knocks her off, literally off of a pier, and takes out his revenge by keeping her locked in the trunk as the Sunbeam sinks into a lake. The interesting part about the new movie is it kind of took everybody by surprise. Kind of like, Stallone did Oscar, and you're like, what is this about? It's like Clue, right? But kind of set to a musical, but not. And Tim Curry's in both of the films. And so it's the same premise. It's the same story, but it's much grittier. It's much darker. It's actually much more graphic, and it gets your attention. But what nails you right away is the soundtrack. And most of the soundtrack is done by like Mint Royale. It's a lot of like techno and synth wave and stuff like that. And it really draws you in because the soundtrack is designed to go with the action in the film. But what's really cool about this, and if you really nerd out on the film, you realize that Michael Caine is in the second movie, and he plays the opposite role in the remake. Right. So that makes it super cool, and it makes a tie-in back to the original film. Awesome car chase scenes in that movie. Sly Stallone is behind the wheel of a Cadillac DTS, so it's a DeVille, and it's a Jaguar that he's being chased after, just like in the original movie. So it's yet another tie back, yet another throwback to the original film. And unlike Vanishing Point, where it's like, okay, the acting's actually really good. The soundtrack is good. It keeps you engaged. I've showed it to a bunch of people, and they're like, wow, I didn't even know this film was a thing. And then they get hooked. For me, I really enjoy this, and I think it's awesome, and I can't recommend it, enough.
The new one's streaming on Hulu, so we'll definitely have to check that out. And
yeah,
the
definitely.
old one's on like Amazon for like $4. So
Exactly.
But I gotta say, I think we have a third contender that's gonna pull up, since we've mentioned Sylvester Stallone and vintage cars. One of our favorite Stallone movies with a spectacular car, Cobra.
Oh, I knew you were going there.
Yeah, with the 50 Mercury Monterey.
Such a terribly bad good movie.
It is the best movie where the main character cuts cold pizza with
scissors.
I mean, it has all the same tropes as like Commando and some of those other ones where it's like, we have to save the damsel in distress. And you're like, oh God, here we go again. But it still has that Rambo flair to it, which I guess kept me engaged when I was younger. But rewatching it now, I don't know, it's kind of cringy. I could watch Get Carter all day long. I mean, like Eyes Wide Shut, or not Eyes Wide Shut, Clockwork Orange style with my eyes, glued open. I'd be okay with it.
I think a better Stallone car movie is Driven.
Driven, yeah.
Oh,
Rennie Harlan, baby.
Can you hear me hitting my head on the table?
Not the Expendables? Any of them?
I was thinking you were going there, but Cobra was like my gut reaction, but I thought you were going to go there because he drives that old Chevy pickup.
We can't do Expendables. They drive motorcycles and planes. And
he's always got the car at the very beginning and the very end, because he's got to bring his personal car in.
Yeah, that's right.
That truck is super cool. I mean...
Oh, that truck is so good. I mean, it has more skulls than I usually go for in a vintage vehicle.
That was done by like guys at Gotham Works Garage. I think they love that stuff.
More than the like hood emblem or the gear shift. It's just asking to be pulled over.
Right?
100%.
I mean,
if you can catch
it's called profiling for a reason.
What do we think? I mean, I know you guys aren't the experts on this movie, but based on the way I pitched and positioned this, do you think it's a draw between the two? Like they're both worth investigating and engaging? We'll just call it a 0. It's a no-win for either side.
Yeah, but they both sound great. I know I haven't seen the second one or the remake. I genuinely don't remember if I've seen the first one or not.
Yeah, it might be one of those like, wait, am I thinking Italian Job, or am I thinking Get Carter, or
right, or Mr. Brown,
Dirty Rotten Scoundrels? Could be anything.
That's true.
Jaws 4.
Yeah.
Alfie, whatever.
Oh, yeah,
I thought that movie was about an Alfa Romeo, and I was severely disappointed when I watched it. But hey, whatever.
Yeah, I would call it a draw.
We're good. So we're tied 2-2, new versus old. I'm okay with that. We mentioned Jason Statham, and he's been in a ton of car movies. I mean, you name dropped Fast and the Furious, Hobbs and Shaw. I mean, we got to say The Transporter, especially the original one, right?
Expendables.
Exactly. I mean, knives are faster than guns. We all know that, right?
Yeah. They say bring a knife to a gunfight. Duh, that's a cliche for a reason.
One of my favorite scenes in that movie was literally that scene where he's like, let's go. You know, there's all these guys, all the terrorists standing around. They're like, what are they arguing about? And then bullets and knives start flying. It's fantastic. And Dolph Lundgren's just epic too. I mean, come on, you know.
He's spectacular, yeah. And then in the sequels, when they talk about like what happened to him, drugs. He used to be a rocket scientist.
You know, he is actually a chemical engineer.
Yeah.
It's the
He
coolest
was a
thing.
chemical engineer that Grace Jones went, hey, that guy's really good looking. You want to come with me and be in a movie? And then from there, his first movie, James Bond, View to a Kill.
We could segue for a moment and talk about James Bond.
The best James Bond movie, View to a Kill.
I have said this on other podcasts. It is the essential oil of James Bond's movies. It is every James Bond trope distilled down into its purest form. You don't have to like it, but that is the most James Bond movie that exists.
One of Connery's last ones, right?
No, that's Roger
Roger
Moore's
Moore.
That's
last
right. I
one.
thought, okay, yeah. Is he the best Bond?
No.
Oh, I mean, I like him. We've had debates, though.
I don't think so. I think he's the best Roger Moore. I mean, there's Roger Moore, then it's like, yeah, it's Roger Moore. Even when he's playing like a Nazi soldier in Escape from Athena, it's like, yeah, that's Roger Moore. You're not
100%, right? Or he's in what was the Spice Girls movie, Spice World, right? It's still Roger Moore.
Yeah.
Here's my argument. Pierce Brosnan is the best James Bond. He's the epitome of James Bond with the worst scripts.
I give you that. And Timothy Dalton had the best premise and the worst time as Bond, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna lie, I like Lazenby's. I think that we should have given Lazenby more than
Did you see the documentary on him?
I haven't seen that yet.
Oh, there's a mockumentary called like The Man Who Would Be Bond, because he only did one Bond movie, right? And it's epic.
Dan Connery come back.
Yeah, and he's so funny, and it's one of those mockumentaries, much like Framing John DeLorean, where they brought in actual actors to play out the scenes as he's describing them, and I was literally in tears. It is so funny, and he tells it just so nonchalantly, and there's some very touching moments like throughout the mockumentary. But if you have not seen it, it was on Hulu for like forever. You definitely got to check it out.
And who would be Bond? All right,
we're adding it to the list.
I just given you like 12 more episodes now. But
oh, for July, we are doing the 007th month. This is our second year in a row doing it. The premise of our podcast is bad movies. We're going through the ones people generally don't love and justifying why really they're all great.
Can I tell you what my favorite Bond movie is?
Of course.
Never Say Never Again.
Coming in this next month?
Keep your holes open, it's coming.
Can I tell you another little bit of trivia?
Oh.
So as you guys know, Barbara Carrera, the mother of Tia Carrera, she is Fatima Blush in that movie, right? And do you remember in that movie, there's a chase scene between Sean Connery, because that was the movie he came back for in the 80s to be in. And he's chasing her on a BMW motorcycle with all the, trick gizmos that Q puts on there and all that kind of fun stuff.
The gadgets.
So that little red car in that movie, it's a French sports car, right? Homologated rally car. It's known as the Renault Turbo 2, right? It's actually mid-engine, and it's actually very quirky and very French. And I got an opportunity to drive one and write a review on that car. It holds status with a few other cars that I've said many times, never drive your heroes. And if you want to learn more about that experience, read the article, visit our website. But I got an opportunity to drive one of those cars, and it was very interesting. I'll put it that way.
Nice. It opens up with, it's not a Peugeot. Wait.
We were talking about Statham, right? And we got a little bit sidetracked about Bond. I think
that's right.
To kind of wrap up the whole Bond, discussion there, I think if we lined up all the Bond mobiles and drag race them, it would be a hard tie between the original DB5 that Sean Connery had and probably one of the later DBSs that Daniel Craig drove. What do you think, Brad?
Craig is my favorite Bond.
Obviously, the Craig cars for sure.
It wasn't the
Yeah,
underwater
he's super
Lotus?
into the Ford hybrid that they drive through the desert, not Quantum Solace.
Oh
Yeah.
God.
That Ford Flex or whatever. Yeah.
The underwater Lotus from Octopussy. That's another great car.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now we're talking.
No, I do. My favorite Bond car is actually the Z8.
That was cool, and they made a handful of those things, and they're gorgeous.
They are. I've had the pleasure of seeing a couple in person, and they're stunning to look at. I hear they're terrible to drive, but they're stunning to look
They're
at.
also made of unobtainium, and that's
Yeah.
their price on Bring a Trailer these days too. So
That's everything's price on Bring a Trailer.
The moon buggy from Diamonds Are Forever. That's my vote.
yeah, I forgot
the
about
Moonbuggy's
that.
pretty good.
Maybe I'm confusing Fast and the Furious with Bond. No, there was a Bond one where they had wings and he flew over a boat, right?
Oh yeah, he has the little gyrocopter. The
Yeah.
So,
what do they call it? Little something. Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna look it up.
Was it You Only Live Twice? Yeah, it was the Japanese.
Is it
Yeah.
in
You Only Live
Japan?
Twice. That's
Yeah,
right.
but I remember the fun fact about that. It was like the little Eddie or little Edith or something.
Yeah.
And they made that. It was a one person, basically a bicycle helicopter. They made it for the movie, and like British intelligence and US intelligence got a hold of the prop guy who made it, said, "Does that actually work?" And he said, "Yeah, it really works." And they were like, "You have to make these for us." And he made them for them, and they made their own versions of stealth things out of it. So that was one that started as a prop and became a real vehicle.
So look at that trivia. It's everywhere.
Yeah. Fun facts.
So since we've done a couple donuts there, now we're going to talk about Statham again, right?
Yeah, I am down to talk about Statham.
circling back, just like Nicolas Cage. He's circling back. Let's go with Death Race, 1975. David Carradine versus 2008 Jason Statham. What do we think?
That's really hard. I have a huge crush on Jason Statham. Mr. Statham, I know you're listening. Go ahead and hit us up at Everything I Learned from Movies. We'd love to interview you because I know he listens to this.
Well, we'll make a call right now.
But the original Death Race is so spectacular. Steve and I had the opportunity in the before 4 times to host a screening of the original Death Race at our local theater. That is spectacular on the big screen, by the way, guys.
Yeah, it's great. Low budget in the 70s, like $1 million or whatever, but it's like great satire, but also mixed in with some pretty cool car stunts and, obviously over the top design, kind of like even like pre Mad Max, where it's more like just the crazy, zany kind of like plaster bodies.
Yeah, like just silly fiberglass bodies.
Yeah, fiberglass, that's it.
But some really good, he said really good stunt driving. Steve's possibly favorite joke in all of moviedom, it's a hand grenade.
It catches me every time too. Just when he pulls it out, and it's like, oh god, that's right.
I like the Carmageddon style sequence where they're at like the old folks' home and they're like wheeling them out in the wheelchairs and the numbers start popping up and stuff like we're in Pac-Man or something. It's craziness.
Oh, they wheel out the old folks and then Carradine goes for the nurse instead.
Yeah.
Points.
It's been a while since I've seen the 2008 one though. Like obviously you've seen it, directed by Paul W.S. Anderson before he like exclusively made Resident Evil movies and stuff. But I've also seen like all the sequels that starred like Dominic Purcell and what was it, 2050 that came out a couple years ago.
Yeah, with a bunch of the background guys from Fury Road.
Oh yeah.
So you're talking about the new Death Race, right?
Yeah, the new one had,
and
had
I've seen
DVD sequels.
exactly. I've seen those too, and they're prequels to the Jason Statham movie, which makes them a trilogy because it tells the story of what's his name, Frankenstein or whatever.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed them, and actually, for the audience, if you haven't seen those prequels, those direct to DVD or probably VHS or at Blockbuster, you can pick it up tomorrow. I recommend it. I mean, they're totally the one Blockbuster that's left in the US. I mean, I totally recommend them. They're super cool because it does fill in the backstory into that almost comic-like world that was created around Death Race.
Oh, have you guys seen Doomsday?
Superman Doomsday?
No, okay. So around the same time, like 2008, 2009, maybe 2010, director Neil Marshall, who did like The Descent and like some of the better episodes of Game of Thrones and stuff
Okay.
like that, and then Hellboy. But he did this movie called Doomsday, and if you like Mad Max and like the Death Race 2000, or the Death Race with Jason Statham, I would highly recommend you check out Doomsday because it's like
Super
Mad
fun.
Max without the trademark.
Yeah, I think I've seen Doomsday. That's the one where they end up in the world of Excalibur and
Yes,
the middle.
yes.
Yeah, okay.
Medieval times or
Wait,
whatever.
I thought that was
maybe.
time. I thought that was Timeline with
Paul Walker.
Paul Walker. Yeah.
Yeah, timeline.
They don't end up in 13th century France because they time travel using mirrors. Nope, that's a different movie.
Dude, that book, I'm a huge Crichton fan. The book is fantastic. The movie
That is
was
one of the
the
best
books are
garbage.
always great. That's why Michael Crichton doesn't let him make movies from them anymore. He's like, you guys keep fucking it up.
well, he's also
I mean,
dead,
it's-
so that doesn't
it's
help
not-
either.
Well, I'm sorry, his estate.
It's no sphere. Don't worry,
Ugh.
they're nocturnal. They're only poisonous at night.
That's not what that means.
All right. I'm gonna say it again because I've said it a million times before. Westworld is amazing. Inspired by Crichton in the original movie, Yul Brynner and all that, but still, the new Westworld, fantastic.
I mean, it's no Runaway, but
Yeah.
what can be.
Oh, if you guys have not seen Runaway. Oh.
So yeah, Death Race. No.
So circling back to Death Race, I mean,
so many circles.
they're hard. Yeah, we're just doing donuts now. It's like, it's like drift. It's a drift course, not a drag race anymore. But I think the first movie, kind of like Vanishing Point and some of the other ones, it holds a place in cinematic history because it was so different. It was so new. Campy as all get out, but in the same way as the Gumball Run, right? And some of like Raul Julia is in that, and some other films that were like car related, where it's like on these epic journeys and all that kind of thing.
World, yeah.
Exactly. Death Race is like Waterworld meets Mad Max meets like a bunch of other stuff. And I thought it was fun though, and I will rewatch it. I think what's cool about it, unlike the scene in The Italian Job with Statham, where the guy Wrench comes to help him, and I laughed when I saw that again. And I'm like, who is this clown? Because in my mind, that same scene was played out in Death Race, and it was Machete instead, right? And you're like, yeah! And stuff like that is what made Death Race the new one for me, because it added that extra level of grit that it just needed to get it beyond like, this is just kind of dumb and video game like, where it became fun and rewatchable and something you could just throw on your iPad on an airplane and go, we're going to kill it for the next 2 hours. Literally kill it, because that's what they do in that movie.
Wait,
in
there
the
is
title.
a board game, an unofficial board game for Death Race, and it's super fun.
Is this like the jump to conclusions game in Office Space? Like, what are we doing now?
I don't know. It's a real.
Oh no,
one.
it's a real game, and
What?
like so it's a board game. It's sort of set up like the Game of Life, like you got the little road you go down.
Oh, so
And
it's the sequel to Zathura. I got it.
Totally set up like little different people. There's the kids, there's the old folks, there's the women, there's the men. You get different points if you can land on their square and hit them.
I like this. I gotta find this.
It's pretty fun.
I mean, I get my daughters would get the concept of just ramming into the people with Matchbox cars, but
Yeah,
So-
same with the Death Races. The old one's a classic, but
Really love the old ones so much. I love the camp value.
the old one's got Carradine, it's got Sly Stallone, it's
Yeah.
got other people in it. The new one, if you took out Jason Statham and replaced him with Nicolas Cage, would it be just as good?
Oh,
no,
no, we love Statham. Don't even
Statham's
get us
great.
wrong.
Statham's great.
Yeah.
Statham can stay.
I guess what I'm getting at is if you replace the draw of the Statham, the sexiness and the appeal and the British accent, is the movie as good? Is it still a rose by any other name?
Oh,
Does
and
that
replace it with-
sexiness bring you in?
Yeah, yes. It brings all the boys to the yard. All right, moving on.
Yeah, I'd rather watch Statham than David Carradine. I'll put it that way.
I got
So,
you. I got
I'll
you.
go with the new one. All
All right. I think I put my points in lane 2. What about you, Brad?
The new one, for sure.
So this now puts the new movies one up on the vintage ones.
Ooh.
We got to switch gears a little bit. We're not going to split our car in two or in half or run the rear end past the front end like they did in Herbie. And there have been many sequels to the Herbie franchise. So Pulling up to the line in lane number 1 is a 1963 VW Beetle, and in lane number 2 is a drunken Lindsay Lohan. So
It's lane 1. Let's move on. No.
Although a friend of the podcast, Dana Gould, starred in one of those Herbie sequels in the 90s, I think. So
We all fall on hard times,
yeah,
Steve.
right? You gotta make some money. Yeah.
Everybody's got to keep their SAG card up.
I mean, you're right. 1968, Dean Jones. I mean, the original Love Bug and the Herbie movies. I am a big fan of Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo. Whatever. I love that movie. I think it's fantastic. The new one, for Herbie Fully Loaded, supposed to pay homage to the original. As much as I love Michael Keaton, and I'm going to say it again, he needs to do Batman Beyond before he passes away at some point.
Yes.
Right? As Bruce Wayne, he just needs to do it.
Yes. Oh my God, I've been screaming this on our podcast for years. I'm so happy to hear somebody else echo it.
I posted it on Brian's Take Two Universe page on Facebook. Go back and check it out. I found a picture of Michael Keaton where they grade him and put him in a wheelchair on an episode of Frasier. He was playing a con man, and I snapped it and I said, boom, living proof Michael Keaton can do elderly Bruce Wayne in Batman Beyond. Let's get it done. I put it out in the universe.
We'll get Elaine Moosey to play Nightwing.
Oh,
That's right. Come on, WWE,
Brilliant.
get your shit together.
All right, we're going to talk Volkswagens again for a minute.
Oh, yeah.
So Michael Keaton, mad props. The man is invincible in my mind. He is Batman. He is a lot of things. Birdman, not so much, but Batman, yes. Lindsay Lohan, we could have replaced her with anybody else. The whole cast of Descendants would have been better than Lindsay Lohan in that movie. But there's a third Love Bug movie that a lot of people forget, and it stars yet another one of my childhood heroes. Do we know who it is?
Is it the Chin?
The Chin, the Bruce. My name is Bruce Campbell. And he starred in another remake in the late 90s. And if you haven't seen this film, have you guys seen this film?
Yes, I was in middle school when this came out, so still enough of a kid that I was in the target demographic.
Do you remember the importance of this movie?
No, because I don't think I have seen it since it came out.
All right. Steve, do you know why this movie is important?
No.
There's two big reasons. Well, three. Number one, Bruce Campbell's in it. Number two, Dean Jones cameos in the film. And it's supposed to be the Herbie, the original Herbie in that movie. And three, it is the only Herbie film that actually depicts and tells us Herbie's origin story, the entire paranormal background of Herbie. So we get the inside view into all that. And if there's a 3B, they also take a totally Michael Knight spin on this and develop the car. There was Kit and there was Car, the bad version of Herbie. There is a bad version of Herbie in this movie as well, which makes it delightful and entertaining and a complete waste of 90 minutes. But getting that origin story is epic, and it brings a lot of closure to people going like, okay, I get it. It's Disney, fairy magic and all that stuff. Why a car? Why? And so when you watch that film, then you get that big reveal.
Speaking of big reveal, do you know who directed that movie, The Love Bug with Bruce Campbell? Apparently it was Peyton Reed, the director of Ant-Man and like several episodes of The Mandalorian and Mr. Show with Bob and Dave. And it's like one of his first movies, it looks like.
He holds that in high regard, I'm sure. And
I'm sure, yeah. It's near the top of the resume.
Even Disney forgot that it was in the vault. They were like, man, this movie is tragic.
Hey, there's a bunch of movies they forgot in the vault. Do you know how hard it is to find the devil in Max Devlin?
Is it with you and me and Quan Chi? Because I want to talk about My Name is Bruce. But seriously, since we brought up the Chin, him and Jay Leno being a big car guy, I mean, they are number one and number two. If we're putting them in lane one and lane two, Bruce Campbell versus Jay Leno, which Chin wins the drag race?
Jay Leno by a chin.
No. It's going to be Bruce Campbell because Jay Leno's going to get distracted and go drive off down like the PCH for hours at a time. In a steam-powered car.
Or a turbine or something ridiculous.
But Bruce is going to get stopped by Evil Dead and zombies and
and he drives a 4-speed Tercel that only runs on 3 cylinders. It's not getting very far. And the man's made a whopping $5,000 in his career.
So it's a 3-banger Tercel versus a Stanley steamer.
So Bruce, my man Bruce. If there's any
one you're voting for. We get it.
No. I want to segue for a moment like we did with Bond, right? Where we're going to put Bruce on a Segway, and it's going to be fantastic.
Briscoe County Jr. himself.
Ah!
I think he wrote a segue in Burn
I
Notice.
think he just got a boner.
I think he just came.
Briscoe County Jr. Oh, God.
If you had only said Jack of all trades, it would have been over.
Burn Notice sidekick.
Sam Axe for the win. So that brings me to the point of what I was getting at here. What's the best Bruce Campbell movie?
Oh.
Congo.
He is pretty good in his 5 minutes in Congo.
His one day of shooting.
Was it when he played Autolycus in Xena Warrior Princess?
Oh, that's right. He was in that.
Yeah, he
Bubba
was.
Hotep.
But
Bubba Hotep.
oh, that pustule got its own credit.
How the hell do you make the Mummy worse? Bubba Hotep. They're so bad, but they're so excellent, every one of them.
So much charisma that it is fun to watch him in movies that would be completely unwatchable with almost anybody else in that role.
Absolutely. And he could reprise the role of Errol Flynn whenever he feels like it. That's yeah.
I kind of liked his role in Darkman.
Oh, there's another with Arnold Vosloo going back to the Mummy.
Yeah.
That's a poll right there. Nice job. Like, I don't think a lot of people
He
know
doesn't
that
even
that's
say a word, does he? He just
No.
kind of shows
Don't
up at
think
the end
so.
like, yep, that's my new face now. Walks away chin first.
with Herbie, it goes to the original, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
Bruce Campbell or not, I think it goes to the original. So we're tied once again, 3-3 here. So I'm going to pull one out from underneath a rock. And many people don't realize that The Fast and the Furious is actually a remake of a
Oh, yeah, Roger Corman, baby, 1954.
Yes, John Ireland and Dorothy Malone starring in The Fast and the Furious. And they have nothing to do with one another other than the
Even a
fact
little bit.
No. They
The fact
both
that
are
they're
heading
scars.
towards Mexico.
Yeah, nothing gets airborne or explodes in the original film. There is no danger to manifold, and the paint schemes are quite bland.
How many shifts?
4-speed. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Not
I can't
really
even tell
good.
you what the car is. It's such an unmemorable film, and I have it in my collection. The original Fast and Furious, and then Fast and the Furious, and then the 19 other films that came after that, and that's pretty much it.
All right, sorry, I looked it up for Fast and Furious 1954. It's a Jaguar XK120.
Oh yeah, okay, that's right.
Donated by a local Jaguar dealer.
And it didn't run.
Well,
They
apparently
had to pull it with a Chevy.
Apparently, Corman set up a deal that he was going to borrow them, but they couldn't crash any of them, and none of them were able to be returned to the dealership.
Interesting. Even back then, look at that. But I think in this case, the new one definitely crushes the old.
So I think for the sake of this argument, we get rid of the 1954 Fast and Furious. Grandma drives to the track to sit on the sidelines and watch the rest of the young kids race. So
Okay.
now we need to figure out which of the Fast and Furious, saga is the best film. I think.
All right. Hold on. We're not going to talk about chronology. We're not going to talk about plot holes that you can literally drive aircraft carriers through. Do we count 5 and 6 as one movie? 2 parts to the same movie?
Wait, Fast 5 and Fast 6?
Yeah, they're 2 parts. They're part A and part B.
Okay, here's the thing. Like, based on the time frame, like between movies and stuff, the 8 movies or whatever that have happened so far, hasn't it been over the course of like 3 years?
I think it's been like
Actual
2 weeks.
Like, shouldn't Dom's kid be like in the 6th grade or something by now?
It's like an episode of 24. That's what you don't realize.
yeah, basically.
If we are going to pit Fast and Furious movies against each other, the reason I want to bundle 5 and 6 together, because they really are one big 4-hour movie, because that's the sequence I would pit against any of the other films, whether it be the original one, Tokyo Drift, Fast and Furious 4, that's got 2 flat tires and a busted turbo. That's on the side of the track. It's not even running. But even the newer ones, right? I'm thinking 5 and 6 together, because I can't put 5 and 6 against one another. You know what I mean? But what would you put up against that movie? Or movies?
Well, everyone knows Hobbs and Shaw is the best, but
Hobbs
as
and
far as
Shaw is
like
the best
driving the
one.
cars, I think it was 7 that had the bad guys had those cars that were like basically like Indy cars or whatever, but they were, death proofed out or whatever, and I don't know, some sort of jet engine / magnets. I don't know what,
By the
but
way,
that made them like invincible.
We got to remember too that this franchise starts out with a brother and sister who own a sandwich shop and drag race on the weekends. Also fund their sandwich shop by stealing Zune players out of the back of semi trucks driven by Hercules himself.
That's right,
Oh.
Kevin
Kevin
Sorbo.
Sorbo drives the big rig. I also want to throw out there with the adding of The Rock and Jason Statham to the Fast and Furious universe, Steve and I discovered an Easter egg
Ooh.
that we don't know if they're going to fully cash in on, but they've already started to. In Tokyo Drift,
Han is not dead.
Han is not dead, but it gets better than that. In Tokyo Drift, when they have the last race against the Yakuza, when Sonny Chiba is going to kill everybody if they don't win the race, which is already amazing in itself, Twinkie, Little Bow Wow, is live streaming the race on his flip phone because Japan, they're in the future, why not? And he says to his phone, "Yo, Uncle Deck, check this out." Then they bring in a character named Deckard Shaw, who we find out from Hobbs and Shaw was basically brothers with Idris Elba, who supposedly died a few years ago because Jason Statham had to put him down.
So is Uncle Deck Deckard Shaw
Is
to
Bow
Bow
Wow,
Wow, and that's how they're going to bring him back into, I don't know, Fast
Yeah.
10, Fast in Space.
Is Bow Wow in the Japanese International Prep School because his dad died in the line of service?
You guys have just blown my mind in like the whole NBC, the more you know sort of way. I'm like, holy smokes.
And you guys can go back and rewatch it. We have replayed that scene so many times we wore a DVD out, I'm pretty sure, because we wanted to make sure we heard what we heard, and we heard what we heard.
I mean, that's like me watching My Name is Bruce and pausing when they go to that trailer full of his stuff and I'm playing I Spy, inside the room to figure out which show is in there. Wow. No, my mind is blown. My valves are bent and my manifold is melted at this point.
Well, because the first one they bring Jason Statham in, they go back to Tokyo Drift with him, quote unquote, killing Han, and then they've sort of skipped over him, hoping, and then they explain it more about how actually Deckard was helping out Han, I'm guessing, to escape the Yakuza. So
interesting. Well, we'll see what they do with that. I mean, once the franchise has hit 90 movies, I'm sure they'll do a TV show on like Hallmark Channel, and it'll be fantastic. And we'll just love it for the next 50 years. So whatever.
Right?
Live and love a quarter mile at a time.
Guys, this potentially means that there's a movie out there with Jason Statham, Idris Elba, and Han in their like early days, like a prequel.
That is true. And
they all know each other apparently.
If you had to pick any two people from the Expendables to be in the Fast and the Furious, which is basically Expendables with cars, who would you pick?
Well, we've already got Jason Statham, so
we
already
got the good
But
one.
two more. You're gonna pull two more.
Dolph Lundgren and Terry Crews, though. I mean, let's face it, that's who else we need in this franchise.
I was thinking Terry Crews and Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Jean-Claude is pretty good. Jean Villain.
Yeah.
He only gets to drive French cars, though.
He only gets to ride on top of a Volvo rig.
He gets the brown Volvo from Jalopnik. That's what he gets to drive. End of story.
Put it off.
So a lot of people will argue that Tokyo Drift is probably one of the best movies in the franchise. So do we put that in lane number 2 against maybe the original? I've heard it said before. I've been told.
I've heard it said as well. It's pretty good. I thought it was straight to DVD, but apparently it made like $200 million in theaters.
Everybody thought it was straight to DVD, and yet it made a shit ton of money. Here's the thing. The main kid, not a great actor. The plot, very interesting. The side characters, very interesting. When you rewatch it, you can sort of look past our main characters, sort of a nothing, because the rest of the movie's very good.
It was so good, it brought Vin back.
Right?
He was like, oh no, I'm about to lose another franchise. I need to come back.
Yeah, Triple X isn't working out for me.
Yeah, right.
It's the same movie. I'm like, come on.
So Fast and Furious.
Yes.
They don't want to talk about
give it
Sean.
to Furious 6. Sorry there.
So over on our podcast during the lockdown, we actually did quarter April at a time, and we did review every single Fast and Furious movie because we were just making content, including the Roger Corman one and Hobbs and Shaw and the entire universe. So
nice.
we're well versed in this.
So, I mean, there's so many other films that we could talk about that aren't sequels from the same general era and genre of car film, right? The French Connection, To Live and Die in LA, The Seven Ups, Bullet, Le Mans, Grand Prix, even Rendezvous. If you've never seen that, you should check it out. Probably one of the, I don't want to say the oldest car films, but it's right up there with no redeeming dialogue, but lots of action. We need a tiebreaker here, right? I think we're still like 3-all, if I remember, and we need something to break it up. To throw out a movie, we'll just go for it, and that's going to be it. What's it going to be?
Congo. No.
Like
Yeah,
an
the car movie or
action car
something?
movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, whatever. We got to throw. I mean, we're tied 3-all. We got it. We got to settle this. Old versus new. Do the sequels win? Do the modern movies kick ass tonight, or do we hand it to the vintage guys? You know, loping away with their big V8s.
Wait, wasn't Fast and Furious the tiebreaker? So it's got to be the new ones.
We never got a definitive answer. He's just throwing out.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Fast and the Furious is like, are we drag racing or are we demolition derby at that point, right? I mean, they're just all crashing into each other. And
It depends on which movie you're talking about.
It starts out with their drag racing.
We'll keep it with the first three, where it's like racing.
So they start out as racers. They become sort of demolition derby guys. Then it becomes a car superhero franchise. So now we're into car superheroes.
I think they've been disqualified for cheating, and we need to find a better tiebreaker.
Let me think.
Look, you're just mad because they drove between two towers in Dubai.
All right, the Van and A-Team, old versus new.
Oh, that's a good pull. That's a good pull. I like that.
The
I just
A-Team?
remembered that there was a new A-Team, and it was like, yeah, there we go.
No, I forgot about that movie, and the sad part is I really like the new movie, and I think it's really good. It's basically the same van, so is it really? Or I guess we got to compare the movie now because the vehicle's the same. We pull them up to the Christmas tree. They're going to run the same lap time. So what are we thinking, Brad? Old A-Team, as cornball as it was, you know, I love it when a plan comes together, or the new stuff?
Cornball, I'm glad when a plan comes together.
I'm going to stick with my millennial roots and say the new one.
Ooh.
I got to go with the new one because it has John Hamm in it, even as a cameo.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a good little action movie. I'm surprised it didn't make sequels, but I guess it didn't make a whole lot of money. Like, I'm trying to remember like the old A-Team episodes, and I just remember them being very repetitive. Like, it's always like, hey, we got to go into this compound, and then you get this like, how are we going to sneak in? I don't know, but I've got a plan. And then it ends up like the van's on like a hot air balloon and goes over the fence, and then they get the hostages and shoot their way out. Ha ha ha! Freeze frame, created by Dick Wolf or whatever it's. Who's the guy? Rockford Files, Jerry Cannell.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and we actually talked about Dick Wolf. He was part of a movie that we reviewed in our movie mix bag episode. So go back and check that out. It's actually a lot of fun. That stars D.B. Sweeney and Charlie Sheen in that film as well. So I get your point about the A-Team, and people are going to hate me for saying this, but I always put it into this category of it's just like Voltron. And people are like, what the hell are you talking about? It's just like Voltron. If you go back and rewatch the old episodes of Voltron, not the new stuff on Netflix, which is actually really, really good, you'll realize very quickly that there's only about 37 seconds of new content in every episode of Voltron, and it's just canned stuff repeated over and over again. And that's how I feel about like the A-Team and Hawaii Five-0 and like Gilligan's Island and all those old shows. It's like, all right, what's the new little piece that we're adding to the same old crap we've been watching over and over again?
I can see it.
All right, timebreaker movies too. I'm going to throw another one out there for you guys.
Ooh.
Smokey and the Bandit. The original 3 versus the 4 they made for Country Music Television.
Yeah, good old CMT.
Directed by Burt Reynolds, apparently.
Ooh.
Ooh.
I mean, it's hard to go against the original Smokey and the Bandit.
What, you didn't like Bandit?
Or Bandit Goes Country, or...
But then they had on what became the CW, right? They had the Bandit television show where he drove a Dodge Stealth, and that was absolutely horrendous. I can't remember the actor's name because I don't think he did anything else. His career tanked after that. But that was along with all those other shows that they were having at the time, like
His name
with
is Hugh Jackman.
What?
What? No, blasphemer!
And
You got sullied.
Daihatsu Charade.
Do not sully the name of Hugh. He apologizes for making Wolverine, but other than that, his career is completely unblemished. It's okay.
Movie 43. Forgot about that one, didn't you?
Oh, that's terrible. Smoking the Bandit. I mean, the original one was awesome. I didn't like the second or the third movie, and I
didn't
love
like the elephant.
we'll get that some bitch. But you know, I don't know. There's something.
Hot Pursuit.
Come on, Enos.
So apparently the third one, oh my god, my
Jackie
brain.
Gleason.
Jackie Gleason was supposed to play every single character.
Right.
Including the bandit. But he got sick, right during filming, so they couldn't do that. I don't think it would have been a better movie.
Nope.
Wasn't that the one where Cletus, aka the Snowman, introduces us to Fred and his girlfriend Frida?
Yes.
Yep.
That's the most memorable part of that movie for me.
But could you imagine if every single character was Jackie Gleason?
That's like a Simple Jack, right? That's how I would view that turning out at the end of that film.
It just like it wouldn't have been better, but it would have been interesting. It would have been a piece of cinema.
It would have been a piece of something. You're right about that.
So the old one wins, right? The original.
I think so. I really do. So, I mean, we're tied yet again. New A-Team, Old Smokey and the Band. I think we just keep going back and forth, but we're having a lot of fun doing it, right?
Car movies are awesome. They need to make a comeback. Okay, the Fast and Furious movies, fantastic. Although half of the stunts and everything in it are CGI. We need more Mad Max Fury Road type shit.
Yeah, we need
real cars just
stunts.
banging and just people jumping from car to car and hood to hood. And
let's break the truck jump record.
Where's Hal Needham when you need him?
Brad Smith is still alive. Let's make this happen.
Come on, Australia. You know what's up.
Now a movie podcast. Sorry, gearheads. People don't watch Tucker because they want to find out about how a guy bankrupted the car company.
So you watched that? I read an article about that movie with that which had Jeff Bridges from Tron. Hey.
So, because we're on the car podcast, I have to brag a little. When I was a kid, my dad was an antique automotive mechanic. His specialty was pre-World War II cars, and he worked on not one but two Tuckers. And I got to ride in both of them for the test drive.
What was it like riding in a helicopter engine powered rear wheel drive monstrosity?
Honestly, it was sort of like riding in any car from like the 20s or 30s, but I was also like 6. So.
Oh, well, there you go. And you know what?
He did have one of those Stanley steamers, and he would take it apart and just store it in the garage until somebody asked him if it could be in a parade, and he'd spend 3 days putting it back together.
Nice. And you know what? I know how we're going to wrap this episode up. I think we're going to do it break fix style, Brad. Why don't we ask him a couple pit stop questions while we're at it?
Okay, I'm down.
I bring my own toilet paper.
Oh.
Pit stop hack number 1.
Are we talking NASCAR pit stop or Formula One?
Oh, road trip. I was thinking run down Valero station in the middle of Nevada.
You just reminded me of Rat Race, where the girl's like, she hangs her ass out the window. Dad, I gotta go.
I'm prairie dogging it.
Oh, so good. That and Sex Drive, where the girl has to fill the radiator on the side of the road. Oh, that scene is incredible. But no.
What's the best looking car of all time?
Ooh, best looking car.
Sexiest.
I like the 69 Le Mans Chevelle, like that kind of muscle car body. That's my favorite.
Nice.
I'm super biased because one of these has been on my mom's side of the family for almost 100 years now. I really like a 36 Ford Cabriolet.
Oh, that's a good pull. That's the first time somebody's gone that far back.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
That's a good looking car.
I agree. And so when we flip that on its nose, ugliest car of all time. We're talking ugly. We're talking fugly.
1987 Ford Mustang.
Anything
hatchback.
Anything Scion.
Yeah, yeah.
Whoa. We got a Fox body on one side, and we have a Toyota Corolla basically on the other side. Wow.
No. Toyota Corollas are beautiful. This is if Duplos had an abortion.
I've never heard it referred to that way, but that's great. I love it.
Stop me when I'm wrong.
Now, I will say there's people like shaking their fists and getting their pitchforks and their torches lit now when you mention the Fox Body Mustang, because that is sacred.
Yeah.
That's a national treasure right there. That's like
Look,
Crocodile
I understand
Dundee.
you guys got ripped off in the 80s. I apologize on behalf of the Ford Motor Company for putting out that shit.
I'm sorry. You were
The engines
19
are
when it
great,
came out.
but the body, yeah, no.
I thought you were going to say the other thing. Everybody seems to like the body, and they go, that 302, 5 liters of 180 horsepower. What is that?
yeah, that is odd, but
It's choked.
but still, you can have that 5.0 on the side of that horrible body. All right, I'm done.
If you could have any one car from television or a movie, what would it be?
What was that car in Octopussy? No, I'm just kidding.
You just wanted to say Octopussy again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that is a tough one. Any car from any movie. Can I have the war rig from
Yeah.
Fury Road? I would like a big rig that has gun turrets attached to it and flamethrowers. We used to live in the San Francisco Bay Area. I've sat in traffic. I'd like a big rig.
I'd like to
So,
not do that anymore.
so you want Optimus Prime, is what you're saying?
Oh no!
Oh, no,
She
no.
wants the war rig, like
want
with
the war rig.
I know.
pusher on
You
the
said
front.
semi, and I just went Transformers. So I was like, all right.
Yeah, no. I believe the war rig could blow up Optimus Prime.
So it's funny when we had Brian on the show, and he mentioned that he wanted the Dogmobile from Dumb and Dumber. So that's high up on the list there.
Do that.
Wait,
I like a DeLorean with a Mr. Fusion in the back. And a flux
Nice.
capacitor. And
See, DeLoreans are cool again. I keep saying that.
they always were.
I want the tank from Tank.
Oh, you just want James Garner's vehicles. Like I'll take the Rockford. God, what was that? A 72 Thunderbird or something like that?
I do like that T-Bird.
Nerds. Now this pit stop is quickly becoming the scene with Ogre at the urinal. So white flag, 1 lap to go. Now I guess we're approaching the checker here.
Yeah, we passed
So-
the checker.
I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna give Steve and Izzy an opportunity for yet another shameless plug. After I thank them for coming on this epic crossover episode, I hope the petrol heads and the movie buffs alike enjoyed this episode and kind of realize how much crossover there is between all these films. And hopefully we presented some films that you haven't seen before in a new way. And you know what? Go bake off some of these films for yourself. It's an easy way to kill, 4.5 hours on a Wednesday night.
Yeah, well, I feel like we've talked about our podcast, everything I learned from movies enough. Babe, are you on social media at all?
I am. I'm actually an artist. You can find my art pretty much everywhere under Untidy Venus. That's a goddess who's bad at housework. I'm all over, especially over on Etsy, where I have my own little shop where Steve and I make awesome creations and sell them. That's Untidy Venus.
Well, guys, again, thank you so much. For our listeners on Break Fix, be sure to tune into Steve and Izzy's show. Everything I learned from movies, they are available on all the majors, as they plug several times on the show. It is delightful. The episodes are a lot of fun. And again, I have to tip my hat to both of you for reaching a number that maybe one day we'll get there. Folks, they are closing in very quickly on 500 episodes. I mean, that is
quantity over quality.
Woo, you can't stop us.
You guys are epic. You guys are an absolute delight, and I cannot thank you enough for coming on the show. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for having us. You'll
Oh,
have
yeah,
to
thank
come
you
on
so
our show
much.
when we get car movies coming on.
Yeah.
Hey, we're gonna take you up on that. We're gonna take you up on that.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, the secret to longevity is sleep with your co-host.
If you like what you've heard and want to learn more about GTM, be sure to check us out on www.gtmotorsports.org. You can also find us on Instagram at Gran Touring Motorsports. Also, if you want to get involved or have suggestions for future shows, you can call or text us at 202-630-1770 or send us an email at crewchief@gtmotorsports.org. We'd love to hear from you.
Hey, everybody, Crew Chief Eric here. We really hope you enjoyed this episode of Break Fix, and we wanted to remind you that GTM remains a no annual fees organization, and our goal is to continue to bring you quality episodes like this one at no charge. As a loyal listener, please consider subscribing to our Patreon for bonus and behind-the-scenes content, extra goodies, and GTM swag. For as little as $2.50 a month, you can keep our developers, writers, editors, casters, and other volunteers fed on their strict diet of Fig Newtons, gummy bears, and Monster. Consider signing up for Patreon today at www.patreon.com/GT Motorsports. And remember, without fans, supporters, and members like you, none of this would be possible.